think you forgot your climbing gear on purpose.
What would give you that idea?
Retro console emulators are nearly as old as the consoles themselves. PlayStation added their own emulator for PS1 and PS2 games to entice subscribers to their PlayStation Plus Classic catalogue game service in 2022. A good foundation, offering enhancements over the base games on genuine hardware. The PS2 emulator was not as feature complete as the PS1 and suffered some problems we covered back then with our performance review when it launched with a limited game selection. Things change and now they take a second bite of the backwards compatibility PS2 market with a new and improved emulator, alongside new games in Sky Raccoon, Star Wars and the original gaming superstar Lara Croft. In Crystal Dynamics' 2006 PS2 hit Tomb Raider Legend. So what has changed?
What are you doing in Bolivia?
Ascending.
Right from the off, John Woo and Tom Cruise have a lot to answer for with their Mission Impossible 2 inspired start to Tomb Raider Legend. Now at first glance things look similar to the previous emulator. The visuals are again improved over the PS2 original, all captured here with genuine PAL PlayStation 2 hardware. Now stepping back from the game itself, the emulator does offer some customizations. As per the PS1 emulator, pressing the select button brings up the EMU menu and extra options. One is enhancements on or off, which turns off the rewind save feature when disabled, likely to help if performance becomes an issue when creating these snapshots or potentially if certain titles have issues with it. You can also create your own fixed time stamps here or scroll through the automatic ones it creates in the background as you play. My advice is leave it on, as the rewind feature is a nice modern function. Visual filters are also here with choices of default, modern, retro and classic arcade. The default is the game's base target and used in all my footage thus far. Modern seems to increase contrast and saturation for a richer look. Retro and classic are CRT faux filters, but here they're overly aggressive and seem at odds with the game's art design. However, more choice is a good thing and other games may benefit from these, but here they are a negative to the image. Finally, you can choose the game's region, which is PAL for us Europeans and Australians, and NTSC for our American or Japanese relatives. For the best settings, leave the game at NTSC, default filter and rewind enabled, and you'll get the best performance, visuals and less frustrating respawns for your decisions. The PS2 in-game menu used to have widescreen, progressive scan and PAL 60 options. All are removed in the emulator. But worry not, as the game now has all of these enabled as standard, or at least one of them is optional. Compared to the approximate 640 by 480 feed on my PAL PS2, the PS5 and PS4 versions, as they are identical, are improved, delivering an approximate 1280 by 960p resolution, a 2x increase on each axis. Now the numbers do not tell the full story though, as it looks to be using 2x MSAA to smooth out the jagged edges and blocky pixels of this near 20-year-old title. Whether the pixel counts are because of this or not, the improvement aids image quality considerably on a large 4K screen with less shimmer, sawtooth edges and better detail resolved on models. The PS2 original still looks good and is doing much of the lifting here, as the base game has great assets, models and animation quality considering the age of the game and hardware limits. In comparisons, you can see clear increase in object details, sub-pixel breakup and no dithering, which the PS1 and PS2 used heavily when in field rendering interlace mode. Over this, we also notice some small increases to texture details, but these are minor and most likely a result of the improved gamma, HDMI output and resolution AA boosts. On a visual scale, these are closer to playing them on a PC emulator, which are noticeable improvements over the PS2 versions, specifically if you played in 512i quality on a large screen.
They don't seem quite so keen on visitors these days.
Well, hey, you're the one with the guns.
You can't blame me for knowing how to accessorize. Any word from Anaya?
She said she'd meet you at the statue in the marketplace.
Now, we did have a previous HD remaster in the PS3 collection that included all 3 PS2 Crystal Dynamic Lara titles. Comparing this 720p update, we can see the telltale signs of the PS3 60 generation, namely bloom everywhere, a soft visual style, incredibly low and blurry texture filtering, and a brown and yellow colour tone throughout. This did improve textures, shadows, and brighten the game up, but Lara model is not the same as the PS2 original, with worse lighting, specular, and overall design. Texture quality can be worse due to the PS2 often not using bitmaps, which provide sharper textures but with a moire flicker under motion. It's still present on the emulated version here, but it can still look better than the HD remaster. The more stable image, darker tones, and improved Lara models over the PS3 version here mean that for me, and in many ways, the PS2 emulated version is better. With a higher resolution, more stable image, not a bad result for an emulated version versus a redeveloped remaster at all.
Hey, do me a favor and check your PDA.
It still works, if that's what you're wondering.
Cool. They said it was waterproof. You should be able to swim with it, no problem.
Sadly, performance is not such an increase, but it is better. Closing out the PS3 HD remaster, which also is capped at 30 FPS, the emulated version has better performance than that. The PS3 update suffers similar issues to the PS2 original. Bad frame pacing causes sufficient issues, but genuine drops to the low 20s happen too often. From exploration, acrobats or gunfights, it struggles to maintain 30 FPS, and even more, a flat 33ms refresh. This leaves a game that can perform better and worse than the PS2 original, and leaves you with a feeling of low effort or missed opportunity for the HD update, and it helps emphasise the benefits offered in the PS4 and PS5 emulation here, and also an earlier version. Cranking up my original 2000 launch day PS2, the default 50Hz PAL mode does a decent job at staying at that target, but the legendary fill rate of the PS2 still struggles at times with bouts of 60ms frame times, causing some 20 FPS fixed points. Additionally, the game is double buffered, so it can have frame pacing issues causing skips between 20, 40 and 60ms to maintain that 20 FPS target for us PAL players. Now, these issues persist even in the PAL 60 mode available in the menu, and again, we can have prolonged dips at 20 FPS here, again limited by the double buffered frame delivery. It still runs well the majority of time at 25 or 30 FPS, but dips are often enough to be noticed. Now, the inconsistent frame pacing, which can feel a little like drops, does stand out more often. A welcome boost to the emulator now is you can choose to play the game in PAL 50Hz or NTSC 60Hz options, which is great, and something added post our performance review which we called out as a potential benefit. Using the default NTSC mode here, we're still capped at the same 60Hz or 30 FPS target, but we now see a firmer grip on those aspirations throughout. The frame delivery is far smoother, dips no longer occur, and frame pacing is almost perfect. Almost. Under all tested sections, at a smooth 33ms consistently, aside one aspect. The new emulator now offers a rewind option as per the PS1 emulator, across your last 10 minutes or so of play. This uses a snapshot of the emulator itself within RAM to store checkpoints of game logic and state, enabling an instant replay back to certain sections, which comes in handy if you die, as it saves the reload, which can still take a few seconds even on PS5. But doing this can cause some minor performance hiccups for a few seconds as the engine and emulator align the stack back to the chosen point, and this can cause some mild memory CPU impacts to frame times, again at a 20 FPS target. They are very infrequent and certainly not all the time, but aside these brief moments though, the game is pretty much a locked 30 FPS. The thing is, this is not a hard task to achieve on the PS4, let alone the PS5, and a 60 FPS option would have been very nice, but we have to at least appreciate the improvements offered here. They are better than the previous emulator, which could have bigger dips than the base PS2 hardware, so the team involved at PlayStation have certainly improved their game, but there's definitely room for even further. The PS4 and PS5 versions are identical, aside from the slightly smaller install size of the PS5 version due to the crack and decompression. However, We know that the original Crystal Dynamics engine did support faster frame rates, and testing the OG Xbox, we can see that this version is the only console version to support 60 or 50 Hz. And as you see here, using the UK PAL version set in the Xbox menu, so the option for a full 60 FPS was and is possible. But this is based on the PS2 source code and not the Xbox one. The engine was an evolution of the classic Legacy of Kain engine on the original PlayStation, PC and Dreamcast. It was a pioneer in CD-ROM data streaming as you moved, and Crystal used it again here. Cutscenes are real time and stream audio with the animation. Gameplay streams data in as you progress, and the future looking skills of the team always impress me whenever I return to their games. As such, loading can be slow when moving between levels or loading a save. These are faster on PS5 and 4, saving close to 7 seconds, loading a new mission over the still fast DVD access speeds on real hardware. And you get to save the constant wear and tear and sounds of disk access to boot.
Alistair, go over these images and see what you can work out. Zip, ring Anaya and see if she can meet me in Paraiso Saturday morning.
They say you never get a second chance at a first impression, but with backwards compatibility, that is often the case. This updated and improved PS2 emulator brings closer choice and parity with the PS1 version released 2 years ago. The visual improvements are the most obvious wins here, helping your mind's eye view of such classics. The quality is not transformative, however, more akin to a HD remaster-like quality for free, and actually better than the genuine PS3 HD remasters in many aspects. It offers more stable and consistent performance and loading over the PS2 and PS3 versions, but it does not improve performance anywhere above those base targets. The rewind option is a nice touch and a useful one for many older games that were far less forgiving than the current modern gaming landscape. The filters add little here and feel a bit heavy-handed on the CRT targets. I would also like an aspect ratio choice for those of us that prefer certain games to remain in the 4:3 ratio or such display to match the intended art here. With Legends, it's not a problem. This update defines a stable version with which to build on. Frame rate increases over the originals is the most logical step, along with AI upsampled textures, which could enhance current and future titles significantly. Right here, right now though, this offers a promise of the potential treasures that may hide beneath the veneer.
Really, Zip? It's like going up a set of stairs, only far less boring.
And there endeth another performance review here on IGN. Remember, if you like what we do here on IGN Performance Reviews and IGN as a whole, then keep it IGN, and we'll catch you on the next one.